Alrighty, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Silver Spoon Podcast. I'm so excited to be joined again today by Elvira. You may recognize her from season 2. We talked a little bit about travel then as well. And since it is officially June, and while it's not officially summer yet, in my opinion, it's travel summer already. So
I agree.
So we have brought Elvira back so we can have a little update on sustainable travel, hear a little bit about what she's been doing, and see if we can find out some more tips and tricks on how we can be sustainable too. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. All right. Well, today's going to be super casual, super simple. Just curious to hear. So since it's been about a year, where have you gone since then? Tell us a little bit.
Okay, so I think when I was here last time, I was planning on going to Europe. And I think back then, I was like, I'm going to do 5 countries. The budget did not allow for that. But we did go to Europe. I made it out to Portugal, which I absolutely loved. I've been raving about Portugal since I got back. I literally want to go back as soon as possible.
Yes,
as soon as possible. So I was in Ireland after Portugal. Ireland, I always say, was the most I live here vacation ever. It was kind of like I knew the corner store to get coffee from. I was staying right in the center of like a neighborhood, like between 2 houses kind of thing, because I use Sonder. I love Sonder. Sonder is my preferred way to stay. Like, it's not Airbnb, it's not a hotel. It's sort of something in between the two. And I loved it. And Ireland was my first time trying Sonder. And it just kind of felt like I lived there. Like I was between 2 houses of like regular people, staying in the middle. And I would walk through St. Stephen's Green Park, which is where every regular person commutes to work. So Ireland truly just felt like, oh, I just live here. Like it's just like I'm from here kind of thing. So that was fun. I came back stateside. And then I did 2 more states. I went to Colorado in January. Which is my 27th state. And I did Vermont in February, which was my 28th state. While I was in Colorado, I hiked up Rocky Mountain National Park. So that was cool. I did some hiking there. And then Vermont, I was really there for graduation, but it was cool to see some stuff. And I just got back about 2 weeks ago from Mexico. I was on the peninsula of Los Cabos. So I've been to a few places. Not as many as I thought I was going to go when we spoke. You know, you have these like big dreams and big goals of where you're going to go. And then you look at your budget and you're like,
things got to change.
So,
No, I love that. Still some really awesome trips. So I'm curious, so in the last year as well, Elvira has been sharing a little bit more with us on TikTok and Instagram about her travels, which I absolutely love. I feel like it's really awesome information about like things that I feel like people don't always think about. Like your most recent video talked about like you were like vacationers versus travelers. Like if you're a vacationer, this is probably not going to really resonate with you. And I was like, I love that. I think that's really an interesting way. You have a really interesting way of approaching travel. And I think more people should definitely get into. So I'm curious, what did you learn on the last trips that you've been on? I know you've shared a little bit already, but I'm curious about, what have you learned and how did you incorporate that into your trip? Because I feel like when I think combo, I think all-inclusive. Like I'm not going anywhere to learn anything about Cabo at all. So tell us a little bit about your trip, what you learned, and then how did you make sure you incorporated a little bit of that history, a little bit of that learning into your trip?
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think when people think about Cabo, they don't think like it's literally it's a hospitality town. You're there for the beautiful beaches, the beautiful resorts. It's beach club life. It's fancy, right? It's very much you're just integrated into this very different life. And as much as I was doing a lot of that while I was there, I always say that I feel like I wouldn't have visited a place if I didn't know anything about what a regular person experiences, right? So I think that by the very definition of being on a resort or at a fancy beach club, the average human, the average local in that community probably can't afford what you've probably saved up for to go afford that vacation, right? So I think my perspective of travel is if I only come here and I stay in this beautiful resort, this beautiful hotel, I'm getting a very skewed representation of the community, because the regular person every day probably isn't affording this place, and I'm never going to bump into them.
Right.
So I go out of my way to make sure that I'm looking for experiences that aren't gonna be what I'm gonna get at the resort or at a beach club or at a fancy hotel. So the way I did that with Cabo is I found an Airbnb experience that was a walking tour.
Yes, you mentioned that last time. Yes, the Airbnb experience.
I rave about Airbnb experiences, and I'm not biased because I own an Airbnb experience.
Hey.
But I truly believe that Airbnb experiences have a very special way of connecting you with people that you otherwise might have never met. And I met this one guy on the trip who is actually one of the founding members of a community project that aims at educating a lot of expats who are moving in to, live and work in Los Cabos about the local community and like traditions and stuff.
That's awesome.
So it actually happened that the walking tour I booked wasn't just, this person who knows a lot about his hometown talking about it. It was in support of a community project to continuously enriching the lives of the people who come to visit and live on the peninsula to know about what the origins of the place were.
Right.
It's a very small radius. We walked maybe like 4 blocks.
Okay.
If that, in like a circle.
Wow.
That just shows you how much of Los Cabos no longer belongs to the people from there.
Yeah, that's
the rest of it is hospitality town. There's actually a place called the Tourist Corridor, where it's literally along the shores of the peninsula, and it's just like all these resorts and hotels and everything. And a lot of locals are employed there, and that's what they do for a living. But it's become less a place for the people who are from there, and more. There's 7.5 million tourists in Los Cabos every year, and there's only 500,000 people who actually live there.
Wow, that is Wow, that's crazy. Yeah,
that was one thing. That particular tour really helped me understand what challenges the people who live there actually face, and then how I could contribute to bettering those challenges while I was there. And it's not always going to be possible for you to do anything about the situation that you meet in the place that you're traveling.
Yeah.
But if you can't make it better, at least don't leave it worse, right?
Love that.
So I did that. And then I also took a food tour with apparently a retired local chef on the island. I didn't know this at the time when I booked with Axel. He was pretty awesome. And he was really great. He took me to a couple of restaurants around town, sort of describing when you would eat a certain type of thing in the day. And I learned something new. Apparently all the guacamole I've been eating in the US is not how guacamole is actually served in Los Cabos. It's more like it's more soupy. It's very watery. It comes out kind of like the way like barbecue sauce will come out from a condiment bottle.
What? That's so interesting.
Yeah.
That's so
the way that we serve avocado here is something like chunky and mixed in with like carrots and stuff.
Texture.
That is not traditionally how guacamole is supposed to be, apparently.
Oh my god.
So I learned a lot of stuff, like that from not only because he's local to there, but because he was a private chef on the island, so he's cooked for a range of different kinds of people. So food is always a really good way to taste a new place you're visiting. So
and I feel like that's not a place that people can taste often, because like in an all-inclusive, you're eating like, it feels like you have like the international restaurants like the hibachi and the Italian, but then like you have like whatever it is that the buffet serves usually, which I'm not complaining.
And I think that it's kind of sad because a lot of the restaurants are, like restaurants that are not even on resorts, and the ones that are on hotels and resorts sort of try to cater to an international palate. But I'm like, I'm visiting your country. Serve me your food so that I can taste it,
Exactly.
But that's not how it's sort of approached. It's sort of like, okay, we're having all these people coming here, so we're going to serve them what they might already like. That's sort of the way that it's handled.
And is Cabo, like, is that so I've been one time. I went to the Hard Rock, what is it, like the Hard Rock Cafe resort there. We went for a wedding. But like, isn't it like it's like not desert, but like kind of like it's.
It is most of it. It's a desert peninsula, so they have some mountains. But it's very dry. So, like, probably from my most recent video, the thing I mentioned the most was that water is a really big issue on the peninsula, and they use like oases from the mountains, like natural springs, to get water. So the government has had to regulate it, right? So there has been some neighborhoods will get water on like Monday and Tuesday, and then another neighborhood will get water on Wednesday and Thursday, and that's all they're getting that entire week. So for the rest of the week, they have to, use barrels and tanks and store as much water as possible that they'll use for cooking, for brushing their teeth, for taking a shower, for using in the bathroom.
Wow.
And then because they know they're not going to get water until next week, Monday and Tuesday. So that's sort of how it is. But like I mentioned, you as a tourist, you're at your hotel and you're taking showers morning, night, and you have no idea that the community that you're living in suffers from a water shortage problem. Because as a resort or hotel, as a hospitality town, you want to make sure you're comfortable. So you will never know that, right? You will never know that this is actually a very precious resource in the community that I'm actually staying in.
Yeah.
Because if you don't venture out to learn about it, you'll never know.
Wow. Yeah, no. Okay, so you said it was an Airbnb experience, but he owned a community project, so he talked about different things. So I'm like curious, like
he did.
How did you? Yeah,
that's
like,
how I learned about it. It's like we walked with him for a little while. We talked about anything from the Mexican palm, how it's different from like what we call a coconut palm, like tree, and how they use that for the roofs that they build. Like you'll know a traditional Mexican house based on the way that the roof was made from a palm. Like we learned, I know that's really random, but we learned
cool.
things, literally things like that.
Okay.
All the way to like who the indigenous people were for the peninsula. Even like, have you ever heard of the Sea of Cortez? People call that body of water that goes up to California between mainland Mexico and like the peninsula coming out. They call it the Sea of Cortez.
Okay, I don't know that.
I learned that apparently that's very offensive to people who are from the peninsula. Exactly. That's like naming something after Christopher Columbus, like celebrating Hitler or something, right?
Right.
So please, if you're listening to this, don't call it the Sea of Cortez. Call it the Gulf of California, because all of California was once Mexico, right?
This is true.
And that's what that body of water is. But because he was sort of like the first person to properly sail into it and discover the area, it's called the Sea of Cortez. But that's actually really insulting to the people who are from there, because all that area is sacred to them, and so the proper term would be the Gulf of California, not the Sea of Cortez.
Okay. Fun fact. I literally had no idea. Oh, that's so interesting. And so, like, speaking of like the indigenous population, is that still like? I know you said there's like 500,000, natives that live there, but I don't know.
No.
Given the history of colonizers in the past,
no. Unfortunately, so the people that are originally indigenous to the peninsula were called the Perico people, and there's actually none of them left in Los Cabos, completely. Like they're completely gone.
Wow.
Probably no one speaks the original language that the Perico people used to speak. What's left behind of them is mostly like drawings on like walls and murals that sort of explain what their belief systems were and how they lived and what they would have eaten and how they survived. But which is, again, the community project is dedicated to sort of educating people about, the people who first lived on the peninsula, but there are no Perico people out there.
That is crazy. Like, and that's so interesting too, it's like when you think of sustainable travel, I feel like the first thing that comes to mind is like environmental, but I don't know, it's like also it's sustaining, like, I don't know, like history and culture that has been so covered up and that is not often taught about, or even just like a first thought when people go to any of these places. So I feel like what you're doing is so awesome. I'm excited to book my next trip, so that I was like, let me hit the Airbnb experiences, because I'm excited. I feel like when I went to Cuba, I think that's the only time I've ever done an Airbnb experience, and it was like the Afro-Cuban community there, and it was like a really cool they we had like food and like danced and did all these like different things, but it was like learning about a whole community that I was like, I didn't even realize y'all were here. Like this is not what I think of when I think of Cuba. It's really cool to be able to learn about that.
Yeah, I know that
history.
people use TripAdvisor and Vider and all these different things to book stuff, and there's really cool stuff on there. But the reason I'm so keen on Airbnb experiences is because as a part of the approval process to have an Airbnb experience, it has to be personal. So like you'll notice that if you look on Airbnb, there are no self-guided tours in Airbnb. You know how you can like
That's true.
buy a self-guided tour for like $10 and then you put your headphones in and you pretty much like navigate yourself through an environment.
Yeah.
There are no self-guided tours in Airbnb.
Okay.
Specifically for the fact that they need that human interaction, connection to be able to really connect you with the place that you're visiting or the thing that you're doing.
Right.
So I guess that's why I've had so much success with Airbnb is because it's really just people who come from that community saying, let me show you my community, let me show you my food, let me tell you about who we are as a people.
Yeah.
I really root for Airbnb experiences. I do.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm curious. So I know you went to Hawaii last time we talked, but have you done any like Airbnb experiences other than Hawaii, like in the U.S. at all? Because I know that could be some interesting hidden history.
Yeah, I've done a few actually here in DC.
Oh, wait, no way. Wait, that's funny. Okay.
Yeah, I've done
I love that.
I've done a few in the area.
Staycation, new meaning. I love that.
Because I feel like a lot of us, when we think about traveling, we think about this outward sort of,
That's
movement.
true. Yeah.
And then a lot of us realize that we don't really know our homes and where we're from. And
That's a very good point.
someone comes to town and you realize, I need to book a tour for them instead of you being able to properly tell them about your city and its history.
That's true.
So because of that, I did a lot of Airbnb experiences in the area, and there's some really cool stuff in DC.
Okay.
Have you ever heard about the mansion on O?
No.
So it's this really, really old building in DC that has 89 secret doors, and they sort of allow you to discover it. It's back in like the speakeasy prohibition era, era where alcohol was no. So it's like you get to experience this and it actually connects you to a speakeasy like underground, or you can have a drink.
Okay.
But that's something really cool that I'd never known. So it's almost like a museum, but it's strange. They're like. They essentially let you roam and you have to explore and find all these there's literally 89 secret doors that lead to secret rooms.
Like, can you get lost while you're in there? Okay.
I would think it's possible. If you lack direction, it is possible to get lost on the mansion on L.
Oh boy.
But so that was something really cool that I did. When I first moved out to DC back in 2017, I did, experiences for just learning about the environment and Arlington Cemetery or, where the monuments that I now tour, that I now give tours on.
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot even just in the area. I did a ghost tour in Denver in January.
Oh, that's cool. Wait, I've always wanted to do one, but also am scared.
For some reason, Colorado, Denver has a really strong ghost history. I don't know why. Maybe it's everything that comes with the gold rush.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, okay.
So that was an Airbnb experience that I did recently in January. Was in Colorado.
Wait, so how does that work? Do they tell ghost stories? Or are they telling real stories of things that happen to people, or?
I think it's a combination of both.
Okay.
So they tell you real stories of what happened to people and where certain people died, and they take you to sites where and they describe this really gruesome thing that happened there, and you get eerie, and it's at night, right? Because you're taking a ghost tour at night, so then
oh Lord, okay,
you really feel that okay, this ghost could actually be here,
right?
So it was walking around the city and stopping at all this really pivotal points in the city's history, and I'm being told a really scary story in the dark.
Yeah.
Looking at something that could potentially be could trick your mind into believing that.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So it just depends. Every approach is a little bit different, but the one that I took, at least, that's how it was. It was more so sort of history telling of very gruesome stories that happened to people from that town.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
I feel like New Orleans would have some wild.
I absolutely think so.
Yeah, they might actually be haunted too. I don't know if I could actually do that one. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's cool, because that's definitely been something I don't know. You're right. I know you said this a few minutes ago already, but in terms of thinking that our travel, it doesn't always have to be we're going to Fiji or somewhere really cool and exotic sounding. So I just feel here the United States is so huge. You do have a lot that we can learn and travel to and experience. When I went to we recently took a trip, so my family's from Louisiana and my grandmother lives in Baton Rouge, and while we were there we did I felt like we did some experiences that, as many times as I've visited them, we've never actually like done like eating crawfish and like stuff like that. Like I was like, you guys do this like every Sunday. Like we've never done that when we came to visit. At least not when I've gone to visit with them. And like my aunt was making a joke, like she'd be like, we do things different here in this country. I don't know what you do in your country, but we do things different. And I'm like, yeah, it like is a whole different place. Like it is so different here. Like even the people, like the way they talk, like sometimes you're like, what did
you
was
say?
that English? It's like did not understand that. It's like it's so fascinating. I feel like we have like such an interesting history, a lot of history that like is definitely not taught either. That could certainly like have some really cool Airbnb experiences. So.
I honestly, like, I really think like I could see myself one day being one of those people who goes to a place and like discovers an experience or discovers a person who's doing something and tells them that, hey, this could be an experience. Like you should make this
you should do
into
this.
something.
Right.
I feel like that's something that at some point in my life I would want to get into, because I think about what would I want to learn when I'm in this place, and then when I'm looking online and searching for an Airbnb experience, I'm like, there's a gap here. There's a need that could be filled.
Missing. Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's true. You seem to like, I don't know. I feel like even just from watching like the videos and things that you put together, it's like you definitely make. Like, it's like the experience is important, but it's like you make the connection with the person. Because I feel like that, I mean, that makes the experience.
It does.
So,
it does.
I feel like that could definitely be a job for you. I feel like you would do very well. You'd be able to connect really well with everybody. Like,
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
One day.
I can see it. So, to sort of like, I guess, not end us off, but like, I'm curious. I know we talked a little bit about your process last time, but has anything changed with how you look for your next vacation spot, how you choose like what you're going to do, and then how you like make sure that like, okay, I've got a little bit of the vacation, like I'm going to see the Eiffel Tower, but I'm also going to learn about, I don't know, the history of the catacombs. I feel like that's also probably really popular in France. I'm not whatever. That was not a good example.
But not as popular as the Eiffel Tower, so I understand.
So, you know what I'm saying? But like a good balance of like, I'm going to actually learn about the community that makes this place what it is. So how do you plan? Because I know the last with Cabo, you went on it was for a wedding, right?
So I was actually going to Cabo for a wedding. Okay. But then I was like, I haven't really taken a vacation this year, and if I'm already going to be out of the country, I might as well make this a destination outside of the wedding. Yeah. So I literally went 5 days early. I got there 5 days earlier than the wedding. Okay. Stayed at a completely different boutique hotel. Okay. Because the wedding was actually right next to Hard Rock. It was at Nobu.
Oh yeah. We went to the pool there. Yeah. It was a nice hotel.
Very expensive, but nice. Very windy.
Oh yeah, true.
But I decided to go a little early. Like I'll get to the wedding, and I knew that whenever the wedding started, I would sort of be busy with the bride and wedding festivities, and they might not give me the chance to actually get to experience the community. So by going early was sort of my saying I wanted to stay in the community and be able to experience it before the wedding or outside of the wedding. Okay. So that's sort of how that happened. But in general, when I'm traveling somewhere, it's usually not for an occasion. This is my first ever destination wedding, so this was a big one for me. Yeah. It's usually not for an occasion. It's honestly usually not to visit anyone specific. Although I will reach out to people who I know in the area if I'm there to see if they want to connect while I'm out there. Okay. But love that. I think that my travels they're driven by curiosity. The human experience to me is just so fascinating. Our ability. And I think that maybe it's because I'm learning that we're all really the same, right? We all want the same things, to feel loved, to feel accepted, that's so true. To share our homes, our passions without judgment. We're really all looking for the same things in life. Yeah, we may have a language barrier, we may have other things that separate us, like politics and ideologies that place our countries in weird positions, but
I know.
The fundamentally...
Anyway, yep.
Yes. The fundamental human experience is to feel accepted, to feel loved, to feel understood. That's what it is, right? And I think that that's really all I'm seeking in the world when I'm traveling. I don't have to agree with your perspective. I don't even have to like it. Yeah. But I can look at it and I can say, okay, that's what you do, and I can experience it. And then I can be far removed from it and never even look at it or touch it again, but at least I got to see it. I got to hear you. I got to, to understand your perspective or to see it from your perspective.
Yeah.
And then I moved on with my perspective. If nothing else, like I always say that when it comes to travel, you unknowingly and knowingly sometimes impact a lot of change to the environment that you're, going to. But hopefully it's changing you, right?
Yeah.
I think that travel has made me more empathetic. It has made me more compassionate. There are probably conversations and topics that I never knew how I might be able to approach them if I was confronted with them in real life. But by traveling, you sort of have a sense, right? You get exposed, you get uncomfortable, and then you have to figure out what that response is for you. What does this thing mean for me?
Right.
And how should I respond to this? So my travels are really just led by curiosity. And I think in recent years, actually, I'm sort of changing my approach to travel in that when you're at a stage in your life, when you're in college or you're younger, you probably just go where's cheaper, what you can afford.
True.
You get there, and there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like because we're all doing that, a lot of places that we want to go to, everyone's there.
That's
and
true.
I love that travel has become very popular. But overpopulation of certain environments is ruining it.
Yeah. I
So
agree.
now I'm trying to do more of the things I considered like my impossible travel list.
Yes. Yeah. Actually. Yeah. You got some impossible travels coming up there. I will.
So
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm trying to do now. Is instead of everyone's been going to Cartagena, like whatever the case may be. Let me go to Antarctica, which that's also getting popular now.
Yes.
But
Yeah, it's
I
not
feel-
that popular yet. Goodness gracious.
But I feel like I want to do more of those kinds of. I want to go see the Great Barrier Reef before it's all gone.
Ooh.
I want to go see the Taj Mahal before it sinks.
Oh my.
I want to, that's what I feel like that's what I've sort of been gravitating towards lately is my wish list of things that could no longer possibly be here because the world's changing and climate's changing and being able to experience them before they're gone.
That's true.
Like, I really want to go to Tuvalu. It's one of the first countries
where's
predicted to sink when sea levels rises. It's off the coast of Australia. I think you have to get to it, you have to go to Fiji.
Okay.
So there's no direct flight to Tuvalu.
Okay.
You fly from here or wherever in the world to Fiji, and planes only land in Tuvalu every 3 days. So you have to plan to stay for 3 days at the very minimum, right?
Oh wow.
But
Okay.
they're also the first country whose landscape is being transformed by AI into a virtual world because soon enough they won't have their home anymore. So currently there's projects that are scanning their environment to commit it to memory so that they'll always have an idea of what their island was like because sea levels are rising. So that's a place I would love to visit, right?
Yeah.
There's another place called Vanuatu, also out there in the southern sort of ocean, where they have an underwater post office. How cool is that,
What?
right? So there are all these
Who's sending mail there? Wait.
I will,
Right.
when I go.
That's so cool.
So there are all these really cool things that I would like to experience. And even here within the States, in Maine, there's a restaurant where you can only make a reservation by postcard. And so you have to get picked by the owner. So in order for you can't go online and make a reservation right now if you tried. You have to send in a postcard and then you have to get picked. So right now I'm waiting to get picked. So if you're watching this, pick me, please.
Right? What? That's so cool.
So there's stuff, but I think that right now that's kind of what my travel is gravitating towards. I want to be able to experience more of those things because I feel like the other stuff will be there,
That's true.
It'll
Wow,
be there.
That's very true. That is so true. Wow, the Taj Mahal sinking. And that one has such a fascinating story. Actually, I don't know if it was the podcast, oh my gosh, what is it called? Wiser World.
Yeah.
She just
That you
released
put me on.
I love that one so much. And she just released another one about I think the Darfur conflict or I don't know, something. But anyway, I feel like she talked about the Taj Mahal and the story behind that and it's a love story, but also she pretty much had I think 18 children or something crazy. He built it for his concubine, and she died in childbirth after being constantly pregnant for years and years, and then she passed, and then it's a beautiful mausoleum, but for her beauty. Wow, that's such a fascinating